I still remember the night everything changed. The silence in our house was too loud, the kind that presses against your chest and makes breathing feel like betrayal itself. Daniel sat at the dining table, staring at his phone longer than he ever looked at me. I told myself it was work. I wanted to believe that. But a woman always knows when love has shifted, when her place in a man's heart has quietly been taken by someone else. And in my case, that someone else was my own sister, Emily. I noticed it first in the way his eyes softened when she spoke, how his laughter came easier when she was around. They thought I didn't see, but love teaches you to notice what others try to hide. I'd catch their glances, brief, stolen, trembling with guilt, and every time I swallowed the scream that rose inside me. I pretended not to know. I smiled through dinners, celebrated birthdays, and held my sister's hand when she talked about someone special. I died a little every time she did. But tonight, as I watched Daniel text her under the table, his lips curling with a smile I hadn't seen in months, I realized something. Betrayal love doesn't always end with betrayal. Sometimes it ends with silence, and the woman who carries it. Before everything fell apart, Daniel and I were inseparable. We met when I was 24, a hopeless dreamer working at a bookstore. He came in one rainy afternoon, drenched, searching for a poetry collection he couldn't pronounce. I teased him for it, and somehow, that laughter turned into love. Our early years were made of coffee-stained mornings and slow dances in the kitchen. He used to hold me close, whispering how he'd never let anything break us, and for a while I believed him. I remember the day Emily moved in with us. Just for a few months, she said. She had lost her job, needed a place to start over. Daniel agreed immediately, always the kind man he was. Back then I thought his kindness was beautiful. Now I wonder if it was the beginning of our undoing. The house felt warmer with her there. She was light where I was calm, laughter where I was quiet. Daniel adored her energy, said she reminded him of how I used to be. I didn't realize he meant that he missed her version of me more than the woman I had become. One evening I caught them sharing stories over wine. Their laughter echoed through the hall like a song I no longer knew the lyrics to. I told myself it was nothing, that love this strong couldn't fade. But love doesn't always disappear overnight. Sometimes it erodes, quietly, like waves eating away at a shore, and by the time you notice, everything that once felt safe has already been carried away. It happened on a Sunday, the kind of morning that pretends to be peaceful. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, and the smell of coffee filled the house. For a moment, I almost believed everything was still okay. Emily had gone out for a jog, and Daniel was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the counter beside my cup. Normally, I never looked. Trust had always been our quiet rule. But that day, something inside me shifted. Maybe instinct, maybe fear. My hand trembled as I picked it up. Her name flashed across the screen. Emily. The message read, "Bruce, I dreamed about you again. I hate that it felt so real." My heart didn't break with a sound. It just stopped. The room felt smaller, the walls closer. I stood there frozen, listening to the shower run, hearing his hum, the same song he used to sing for me. I deleted nothing. I didn't cry. I just put the phone back exactly where it was and walked out into the garden. The roses I had planted last spring were blooming, blood red, and mercilessly alive. When Emily returned, flushed and smiling, she hugged me like nothing was wrong, and I, God help me, hugged her back. Because what else could I do? Love and betrayal are strange twins, both born from the same heart. That night, I lay beside Daniel as he slept. His arm draped over me felt like a weight, not warmth. I stared at the ceiling, and for the first time, I realized something I never wanted to admit. Heartbreak. The man I loved wasn't mine anymore, and maybe he hadn't been for a long time. After that day, everything between us became quieter. Not empty, just painfully calm. We moved around the same house like ghosts wearing old skin, pretending to still belong. Daniel spoke less. I stopped asking questions whose answers I already knew. Mornings became rituals of silence. The clinking of cups, the sound of spoons against porcelain, the faint echo of two people who once loved each other too loudly. I could still feel his presence beside me, yet it felt distant, like standing next to a photograph of a man I used to know. Emily started visiting more often, always with a smile too bright, too rehearsed. She brought pastries, flowers, laughter, all the things I had lost. I watched her carefully, wondering if guilt kept her coming, or if love did. One evening, Daniel told me he'd be working late. I nodded, pretending not to notice that he had shaved, worn his best shirt, and carried that familiar scent, the one he used to wear when we were still happy. That night, I didn't cry. I sat by the window listening to the rain tapping against the glass. Funny how silence can scream louder than any argument. I realized then, love doesn't die with betrayal. It dies slowly, through absence, through unspoken words, through nights spent beside someone who no longer sees you. But the cruelest part of silence is that it remembers. And mine was starting to speak. It was almost a year later when he came back. Not Daniel, but Mark, my first love. The one I'd left behind long before I became someone's wife. He appeared at the cafe where I worked part-time after leaving the house for space. He looked older, softer around the eyes, but his smile still had that same warmth that once made me forget who I was. "You look tired," he said gently, like he could see through every wall I'd built. We sat together for hours, talking about nothing and everything. He didn't ask about Daniel at first. He just listened. And for the first time in months, I felt seen, truly seen. But the universe has a cruel sense of timing. That evening, as I returned home, I found Daniel sitting on the porch. His eyes were red, not from guilt this time, but something else. "Emily's gone," he said. "She moved away, didn't even say goodbye." Berkey. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. Because even if she was gone, the echo of her laughter still lingered in our walls, and the damage she left behind wasn't leaving with her. Daniel reached for my hand. "Can we start over?" he whispered. His voice trembled, like a boy asking forgiveness, not a man rebuilding love. I wanted to say yes, I wanted to believe him. But when Mark's voice echoed in my head, soft, kind, unbroken, I realized something terrifying. Sometimes the heart doesn't belong to who broke it, or who begs for it back. Sometimes it returns to the one who once set it free. It's strange how truth never knocks politely. It barges in, uninvited, unmerciful. A week after Daniel's plea to start over, we sat together in the living room. The evening light spilled through the curtains, touching his face with a softness that almost made me remember who he used to be. But love has a way of turning memories into mirrors, showing you both the beauty and the ache. "I need to tell you something," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, hopeful, like a man waiting for absolution. "I know about you and Emily." The color drained from his face. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just lowered his gaze and nodded. Once, slowly. That single gesture felt heavier than any lie. Tears welled up, but I held them back. "You could have told me," I said. "You could have saved me from pretending." "I was ashamed," he whispered. "I didn't mean to fall for her, it just happened." I almost laughed at the cruelty of that sentence. Love doesn't just happen, it grows where honesty dies. Then he said something that broke me all over again. "I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how." The silence after that was unbearable, and yet, in that silence, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore, just empty. Empty enough to see the truth clearly for the first time. I had spent years holding on to what we were, afraid to face what we'd become, but that night, I finally let go, not out of hate, but because I loved him enough to stop pretending. It's strange how goodbye doesn't always come with words. Sometimes it comes with a look, a sigh, or the simple act of letting go. A month after our last conversation, Daniel and I sat across from each other in the same kitchen where our love once bloomed. the same place where it had quietly died. The morning sun painted golden lines across the table, and for the first time in years there was no anger between us, only understanding. He spoke first. "I signed the papers," he said softly. "You deserve more than I could ever give you." I nodded. No tears, no bitterness, just a strange calmness, like the sea after a storm. "I hope you find peace," I whispered. He looked at me for a long time, as if memorizing the face of a woman he once loved but no longer knew how to keep. And then, with a trembling smile, he said, "I already lost it, when I lost you." After he left, I stood in the doorway for a long while, staring at the empty street. The silence felt different now, not heavy, not cruel, just free. A few weeks later, I met Mark again. He didn't ask for explanations, he just held my hand. His warmth didn't promise forever, only presence. And maybe that's all I ever needed. Because sometimes love isn't about holding on, it's about knowing when to let go. Ibruhe, and trusting that even in heartbreak, you can still begin again. That was the day I stopped pretending. Ibruhe, and started living.